Let's talk about a really tricky question. When an employee does something truly terrible, commits a serious crime, who's on the hook? Well, the employee for sure. But what about the company that hired them? In this explainer, we are going to dive into the complex legal lines that decide when a company has to carry the weight of its employees' actions.
So let's just get right to it. The core question. An employee commits an intentional crime. It feels like their responsibility, and their responsibility alone, right? But can their boss, their company, actually be held legally accountable for that criminal act? Well, believe it or not, the answer is often yes. And it all hinges on a really powerful legal idea.
And that idea is called vicarious liability. It's a bit of a mouthful, but the concept is pretty straightforward. It basically says that sometimes one party can be held responsible for what someone else did. You see this all the time with employers and employees, but the lines get super blurry when we're not talking about a simple mistake, but a deliberate, malicious crime.
To really understand how this works in the real world, we've got to look at a landmark case that completely reshaped the law on this. It's a major decision from the High Court of Australia involving a school, Prince Alfred College, and a plaintiff who is only identified as ADC.
Okay, so here are the basics of what happened. The case centered on a terrible crime committed by a boarding master at the school. And the huge legal question that went all the way to the country's highest court was this: could the school itself be held responsible for what its employee did, even though it was an intentional criminal act? This was a really tough legal and, frankly, moral puzzle for the court to solve.
Now, what made this case an absolute game changer is that it forced the court to rethink a very old legal idea, the phrase, "in the course of employment." See, for a long time, the thinking was pretty simple. An employer was only responsible for stuff an employee did while, actually doing their job. But committing a crime is, well, it's not in anyone's job description, is it? The court was about to completely redraw that line.
And you can see that shift right here. The traditional view was really narrow. The bad act had to be directly connected to the employee's official duties. But the court came in with this major refinement. They said, look, liability can exist if the job itself gave the employee the occasion and opportunity to do the wrong thing. This was a massive change in thinking.
This exact phrase right here, this is the new cornerstone, occasion and opportunity. It suddenly wasn't just about what the employee was authorized to do, it was all about the situation the job created. This completely shifted the focus of the entire legal world on this topic.
And that idea of occasion and opportunity led to something even bigger, a powerful new way of looking at it, the inherent risk principle. The focus was now even sharper. It wasn't just about opportunity, it was about whether the risk was baked into the job itself.
So the court started asking this really critical new question. By its very design, did this specific job carry a special risk that this kind of awful thing could happen? And in the case of a boarding master, who has so much authority and close contact with students, the court decided that, tragically, yes, that risk was indeed inherent to that very position.
So it all comes together in this new three-step test. You can almost think of it like a checklist. Step 1, opportunity. Did the job give them the chance to do it? Step 2, authority. Did the job give them special power or control over others? And then the knockout punch. Step 3, inherent risk. Was the risk of this happening basically woven into the fabric of the job? If the answers are yes, yes, and yes, vicarious liability is very much on the table.
And look, this wasn't just some abstract legal argument happening in a vacuum. This decision sent shockwaves through organizations of all kinds everywhere. It fundamentally changed how they have to think about their responsibilities and even about the kinds of jobs they create. So what's the bottom line here? First, it massively expands an employer's responsibility. No question. Second, it forces companies to switch from just reacting after something bad happens to proactively looking for and trying to manage these inherent risks in certain jobs. And maybe most importantly, it gives victims a clearer legal path to get justice, not just from the person who hurt them, but from the institution that created the whole situation in the first place.
So, if you remember just one thing from all this, make it this. The law is now clear. An employer can't just wash their hands of an employee's crime. If the very nature of that person's job gave them the special opportunity and contained that inherent risk for the crime to happen, then that organization could very well be held responsible.
And that leaves us with one last thing to think about. This ruling definitely pushed the boundaries of responsibility, but it opens up a much bigger, more complicated debate. In our world today, just how far should a company's responsibility for its people really go? It's something to chew on. Thanks for watching.